This is the Leveraging Partnerships for Student and Family Success workshop. COVID has impacted the school setting for thousands of children in the Bay Area, leaving much of the educational realm a challenge for parents and educators alike. Today, we will highlight two organizations who will show how schools and community organizations can work together with families for the benefit of the kids. Gain insight and inspiration on how you can implement or adapt your program to increase family engagement. We're featuring two community organizations. The first is SOMOS Mayfair. It builds community power in East San Jose through leadership development and by organizing around resident-led solutions. Our mission is to support children, organize families, and connect neighbors to uplift the dreams, power, and leadership of community and address systemic inequities. Our vision is a thriving Mayfair. Margarita Arroyo was born and raised in the Central Valley. Her passion for advocacy and for uniting community began when she was a high school student as she co-founded the first Latino club at her high school. Her passion for serving students and communities like her own followed her to San Jose State, where she co-founded a student organization, ALMAS, focused on serving and supporting first-generation students and served as a liaison, helping unite all Latino student organizations. As she pursued a BA in psychology and a minor in Chicano studies, she also volunteered and worked with elementary level students in multiple communities in and around East San Jose, east side of San Jose. This further intensified her desire to advocate and empower other students and communities like her own to work towards building a brighter future. She has over 6 years of experience working with families and currently serves as the site supervisor for the Cesar Chavez Family Resource Center. A second community organization is Amigos de Guadalupe Center for Justice and Empowerment. It advances the conditions for learning by helping local families meet their basic needs in education, housing, immigration, and health. Learn how Amigos has implemented several educational programs to help support learning during this pandemic. Adria Colomer is the education manager at Amigos de Guadalupe. She was born and raised in Miami, Florida, but finished her high school in a small rural town in North Alabama. These contrasting educational experiences granted her the opportunity to face the inequities within the educational system. It has become the driving force behind her intrigue in this field. Adria has worked in a number of organizations geared towards meeting the needs of families and students in the most economically vulnerable communities in North Alabama, and as a second language advocate, and as a language advocate for foreign-born victims of abuse. With a background in secondary English education, she is motivated to continue to advocate for parents and students struggling to navigate the US educational system by focusing on developing and delivering innovative, responsive instructional programs for students from diverse ethnic backgrounds.
All right. Good morning once again, everyone. Once again, my name is Margarita Arroyo, and I'm here representing Somos Mayfair. Can everybody see my presentation? Can everybody hear me okay? Thank you. So welcome to Leveraging Partnerships. I hope that you'll be able to either gain some insight or remember some other strategies you already knew about, but maybe tucked away somewhere, but that you'll have some takeaways from today's presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. So I wanna start off by going over our mission and vision one more time. So Somos Mayfair builds community power in East San Jose through leadership development And by organizing around resident-led solutions, our mission is to support children, organize families, and connect neighbors to uplift the dreams, power, and leadership of community and address systemic inequities. And our vision is a thriving Mayfair. And I want to start off there because I think that that's where every partnership starts, right? Every partnership that we have, it's because our missions align, right? And we have a common goal. And I also want to acknowledge some of our partners. I'm not going to be talking about all of these partnerships today. I will focus on 2 or 3. First 5, Alum Rock and the Museum of Quilts and Textiles. And then I do want to acknowledge Amigos, who is part of the Si Se Puede Collective and is here today, will be presenting after me. But today I'm going to talk about our Bridge to Kinder summer program. SOMOS collaborates with the Alum Rock School District every year on this program. We've been doing so for about 8 years now. And Alum Rock brings the educators to provide access for children who are entering kindergarten. And we try to focus on children maybe who haven't had access to preschool before. So this is the first school experience for many students and for many families too, because, you know, maybe it's their first child going to school or whatever it may be. And so SOMOS collaborates by bringing the parent engagement component. And so while students are engaged in the classroom, SOMOS provides parent workshops with childcare for any of the younger children who parents might bring or care for. And, you know, this is kind of how we set up the road to success long-term to prepare parents to be advocates for their students in the school system. And so before I dive into how this year's Bridge to Kinder program kind of developed, I want to start off with these 2 reminders, disclaimers, statements. And the first one is that everybody needs somebody, right? And what I mean by that is that every body of work that you come across, that you touch, every project, of course, we as individuals as well, but all of those other things need some other body to function, right? And to really bring full service to our families and our students. And so that's something to keep in mind. And the second is that everyone is good at something, right? We're all good at a lot of things, but each of us as individuals and each of the partners that we work with, we each have our area of expertise, right? We have our area where we are the strongest at, because it's impossible. I mean, I'm sure this group is great at everything, right? But other groups, I'm sure. And so the first step to developing programming this year, because, you know, we're in a pandemic and everyone is new to this, right? I have not yet met anyone who's lived through another pandemic and who is like, here, I have a plan, I have the answers. So the first step was to identify needs together, right? Our missions aligned, but we really needed to come together and take a step back because this wasn't going to be Bridge to Kinder like any other. And so we wanted to identify needs together, and part of that process was doing a lot of surveys because, and I should have mentioned this in the partnerships, parents are also our biggest partners, right? We can't do this work without parent engagement. And so parents need to be engaged in the process and need to have a say in what's going to work for them. And so we got together with the district with information from parents, and we had to identify the needs so that we could create solutions to address those needs. And what we found were that there's a lot of feelings of isolation. There's a lot of uncertainty in our homes, right? And when parents feel that, that's then transmitted to students. And so it's hard to engage students in a classroom setting when they don't feel safe, right? And everything around them is uncertain, and they just don't, they're not mentally, you know, or emotionally ready to be in the classroom. And then we also found that, you know, all these gaps that were already there before the pandemic, they were just intensified, right? The technology gap, our parents didn't suddenly lose all of their technology devices and, you know, they couldn't connect. That's always been there. It just wasn't as obvious because students were coming into the classroom, right? And so they didn't need a device as desperately as they do right now, right? And I'm sure that all of us here can appreciate how much more value there is in having a computer or a laptop than having to work off of your cell phone, right? And having to like watch your workshop from your cell phone. And so, you know, the income gap, our parents, you know, they're not a community who makes enough to have savings for 3, 4, much less 6 months out, right? And so all of these things just were made worse, right? The high stress levels because of the lack of access and because of feeling isolated. We also know that that leads to higher rates of abuse in the home, right? And so again, it's just like this vicious cycle. And then we also found that overall there was a sense of, there's a lack of hope and a sense of loss, right? Because people are losing their jobs, they're losing friends, they're losing family. And so COVID has really hit our community really hard. And so, and not including, right, like the food insecurity, or, you know, where am I gonna get money to pay bills next month? So we're not even at that level yet. But those were the four big takeaways, right? And so then we can define goals together. And it doesn't mean that our goals are going to look the same. It just means that we're in agreement that this is our area of expertise and these are the things that we're going to focus on. And then, you know, you have your area of expertise and the area you're going to focus on, right? SOMOS can't determine what's best for the classroom setting because we're not teachers. And so we need to leave that to the experts. But we are great at convening people and at bringing community together and at engaging parents. And so, you know, these are some of our goals. We wanted to build a greater sense of connection. And that's something that we try to work towards, you know, just all the time. And we want to continue to uplift the importance of literacy and learning in the home, while advocating for quality education, right? Because the pandemic is going to end and our students are going to need a lot of support. And so we need strong advocates, and there's no one better to advocate for children than parents, right? And then also support families in their social emotional needs, right? And address the anxieties and the mental health issues going on in the homes. And so that means bringing in those resources so that parents can feel at ease and that we can address the immediate needs, right? So if we can address food insecurity, let's address that. So that's one less stressor. Because we know when parents are healthy and parents are good, then our students are going to be okay. And they're going to be ready to learn, right? And then lastly, we wanted to create a space to dream of a moment beyond COVID, of what we want our community and our world to look like beyond this moment that is, you know, so full of loss, right? So that we can then work towards that. And so, you know, that's part of the goal making process, and the identifying needs then leads us to create solutions. And again, each of us in our area of expertise, right? So like I said, SOMOS brings parents and community together to create and advocate for long-term solutions. So we don't just want Band-Aid solutions. We don't want parents to be engaged right now and then after the pandemic, you know, be disengaged, because then, you know, those are Band-Aid solutions. We need parent engagement for long-term success for our students. And that's with or without SOMOS in the community, right? That wherever they might go, they know how to advocate for their students. And, you know, Alum Rock and their team of educators, you know, they created a curriculum and an adequate learning environment and setting for students who, first of all, you know, many of them, this is their first school experience. So imagine how draining it would have been to have like 3 hours in front of a computer as your first school experience. So something that's adequate for students and for families, right? We didn't want to put any more stressors on the family. We wanted to make this, we wanted to eliminate as many of the barriers as possible. And so, you know, Alum Rock focused on that. And then for this project, we were fortunate enough to partner with the San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles, who provided all of the art materials to create a community quilt. So they provided the materials, we provided the lessons for those sessions. And so they were family resiliency sessions, which means that grandparents in the home could participate, aunts, uncles living in the home, the children and parents. So this wasn't just, you know, for one age group, this was family overall. We're gonna get together, we're gonna heal together, and we're gonna dream of a better tomorrow together. And so they donated those materials and are putting our quilt together. And that's also a visual representation of the unity, right? Of that moment that I felt alone and I found or connected another family, another parent who was going through the same hardships as I was. And so that's really neat. And that's really what partnerships are about, right? We each bring something different to the table, but we bring them to support our community in the best way possible and to meet the needs of our community for the well-being of our children, right? And so with partnerships, there's also an opportunity to bring, like I mentioned before, right, those additional resources. For Bridge to Kinder, we were able to provide additional learning materials. We were, like I said, you know, there's the meeting the needs, the basic needs and basic necessities of like having food on the table. And so all of these are photos of partners who have jumped on and supported us one way or another, right? Because we have a team, but there aren't enough of us, right? There's a lot of need out there right now. And so if there was ever a time to come together, that's right now. And so, so what we found, because this has been a learning experience for all of us, and so there's been like a lot of surveying, a lot of conversations with parents, right? And figuring out if what we're doing is working, if it's helpful, or you know, if we need to change things up. We don't want to wait until the end. We want to figure it out as we're going. And so what we found, or at the end of this program, parents built a network of support. And not only were SOMOS and the district involved in that, but parents started their own mutual aid group where they can keep in touch and they can ask each other for help. They can ask each other about, you know, questions that they have from the school, and they can stay connected, because that's so important, right? Feeling connected, especially in these times when we can't physically be in the same spaces. It's important that we do so at least virtually. And then again, right, we're able to address other needs. So it's not just what do you need to learn, but we know that we have to meet all of these other needs before we can get to the learning part, right? We need to make sure that we're okay mentally, physically, that our children are fed, that they're well rested, that parents aren't, you know, stressing all night, because then that's transmitted to our students. And so we were able to meet some of those emergent needs. And we're also able to build relationships for the long term, right? So Bridge to Kinder doesn't end and it's like, all right, everybody goes home, this was great. But it's a lasting relationship. So parents are now engaged with us, and are actually, all of the parents who participated in our parent workshops became engaged in other areas of our work and joined SOMOS. And so that's for long term, right? And so that means that they trust us, that and that we're partners. And that's something that we always say to parents. We are not here as solely, you know, service providers, we're partners. So you have to help us, and you know, it's a two-way street. And lastly, and I think one of the most important outcomes was adaptability. So students, parents, and teachers all reported being better prepared to start a virtual school year. We did a post survey about a month and a half after Bridge to Kinder, once the school year had started. And over 85% of parents reported that they felt they were better prepared to start a school year, a virtual school year. Over 95% of parents reported that they felt their children were better prepared for the virtual school year. And teachers, all of the teachers who participated in the virtual Bridge to Kinder program said they were also better prepared to start the virtual school year. And that's so important because, you know, when the virtual school year starts, or when anything, right? If we're not prepared for it, we're less likely to remain engaged. And so if you know how to prepare, it's like doing a test run, right? But you already have those relationships. So it's so much easier to not become disengaged, and to stick with it, and to find support when you need that, right? And I think that concludes my section. I don't know if there's any questions. I think we're going to have questions at the end, right? Okay. So thank you all.
Thank you, Margarita. I'm next. This morning I've had a bit of computer issues, but let me find my presentation and I'll be happy to share. Okay, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, so let me assign the co-host. All right, let me just